Morning all, Mutton here. My time in Lahore has come to an end, and today we move on to Islamabad. Now, I believe Pakistan has South Asia's first motorway network, so I don't know whether there's anything to see or how smooth and efficient the journey on this network will be, but join me today for the road trip to Islamabad. Now, I've been lucky enough to be able to stay in a members club called the Lahore Gymkhana, pretty exclusive place actually. And as you can see, the hotel grounds are beautifully kept. I mean, that lawn is incredibly well tended, and there are a number of bars, restaurants, seating areas, smoking rooms, and a golf course, which is quite possibly the best in Lahore, although given I don't play golf, I wouldn't be in a position to tell you that. There is a similar club in Islamabad. Whether I can get in there, I don't know. I was lucky enough to know people who could sign me into one of the rooms as a guest, so we'll see what happens when we get to Islamabad. Anyway, let's head off to the car and hit the road. Pakistan has South Asia's only motorway network, and after a bit of bad traffic coming out of Lahore, within about half an hour we were zipping along at European speeds. And of course, as an ex-British colony, they drive on the left in Pakistan, although these 270-degree slip roads are something that you'd see a lot more in continental Europe. So this is what a Pakistani service station looks like. Now, I have to say, whilst the road is pretty well constructed, I found it bizarre that there were people wandering around at intervals by the side of the road. Maybe the rules of the road are not quite the same. And also, Pakistan is metric, which comes as a surprise to me. Now, while the urban sections of the motorway are free, the non-urban sections are tolled, but at £4 between Lahore and Islamabad, that's very reasonable. So we've come off the motorway now and we're heading towards a tourist attraction, a salt mine that apparently has the second largest production of pink salt. However, the road, I'm afraid, is back to normal, shall we say. Potholes all over the place and some careful navigation required to avoid them, and very dry and dusty, I might add, as well. And another feature of the road here, the very garishly coloured trucks and buses, all sorts of bright pink, orange, red colours. So just over halfway to Islamabad, and we've stopped at a place called the Khewra salt mines, second biggest producers in the world of Himalayan pink salt, which is supposedly healthier than normal salt. No idea whether that's true or not. Well, we used to have tuck shops at school. I've never seen a souvenir or snack store being called a tuck shop before, but obviously in Pakistan, that's the phrase they use. And a word of warning, if you do come here, make sure you don't need to use the toilet. They are very, very traditional style toilets, if you know what I mean. So we've just bought the tickets. The price for a foreigner, i.e. me, 3,500 rupees or $20. Price for a local, 400 rupees. which is, well, you can work that out, that's $2 and a bit. I think 10 times the ratio is going a little bit far. I do understand dual pricing and the different scale of economy and need to bring in tourist revenues, but that's taking it a bit too far. So there is a little train you can take here, but it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and apparently the last train of the day is gone. But it's only a kilometre anyway, so it's no big deal. That is, of course, unless we have to hike up one of these mountains. So when you come in, there's a little security check and a metal detector, but my pockets are so full of metal in terms of camera equipment and phones and things, I can assure you that they don't work. Anyway, on to the mines themselves. Now, Himalayan pink salt is actually a form of rock salt which has the same qualities of sea salt. And this mine, or the salt in the area rather, was first discovered by Alexander the Great in 326 BC. And there is a table of information when you enter or pass the security check. And the British took it over in 1849. After the Sikhs had taken over from the Mughals 40 years before that. Mining itself was initiated in 1500. Now the legend doesn't tell me how much is actually produced now, but back in 1914 they reached 80,000 metric tons, so who knows what it is now. Maybe it stayed the same. So here's the tunnel that leads to the mines, and this tunnel, it seems, was carved out in 1916. And when you think of salt mines, you often think of the Siberian gulag, but here we are in the foothills of the Himalayas in Pakistan with a pink salt mine. So the light is appalling here, so I'll be back on camera when we get to another place of interest, hopefully with some light. Finally the generator came on and we have light. And I'm reliably informed that there are 17 layers, both above and below this particular shaft. Well, here's the train for those who get there here a little earlier and manage to take one. Apparently this salty water runs off to a factory somewhere. It's not clear to me what they do with it, but you can see we're actually walking over salty deposits here. If you can see the stairs there, so this staircase pumps fresh, cool air into the mines and goes all the way to the top of the mountain. So for the avoidance of doubt, this is definitely a working mine. I mean, we've passed a fair few miners with helmets on, and we can definitely see one walking this way. Anyway, this is called Chandi Chowk. It's where the train stops. You dismount the train here, and the train goes out and does a loop and turns round to collect passengers on the way back. And the light's not great here because of the lamps and the distance, but they extract 50% of the salt on the left and 50% on the right, so that there's an equilibrium, nothing collapses and the mountain doesn't cave in on it. And just look at those walls, they are bright red. And it's also reckoned that the salty air inside this mine is a very good cure for people with stomach problems. So if you have a few too many spicy ones and the stomach's a bit turbulent, the area around the salt mine's the place to visit. If it actually works, this cure, of course. And unfortunately the tour is in either Urdu or Punjabi, one of the two, so fortunately Safdar can translate for me, but given I paid $20, you would have thought there might be some bilingual aspect to the tour. So the way they create shafts, which probably isn't unique to salt mining, is to drill a hole, stick in some dynamite, blow it up, there you go, you got your shaft. So I believe the mining network is like 150 kilometres long, and they've only extracted as yet, they reckon, 20% of the available salt here. After all those years, incredible, isn't it? Now, I've no idea whether this is actually in use, but they've managed to create a little mosque out of salt. So it is actually in use, and miners do actually come and pray here. And a copy of the Fort Tower from Lahore made out of salt. Another ventilation hole here. There seems to be salt crystals sliding down that aqueduct. So rainwater gets drained through here, and obviously it collects salt on the way. So some more colours here. Sort of orange this, I suppose it's just a mixture of white, red and pink really again, but maybe the lighting makes it look a little bit different. And if you were to bathe in that water, which I wouldn't recommend, you'd probably float because of the high salinity, a bit like the Dead Sea really. So we've now left the mine and it's dusk, and you get a little souvenir, not surprisingly a stick of salt. I think I've never seen that, I just missed it actually. That goat was tucking into a packet of potato chips. And I might add, I always think dusk is a beautiful time of the evening, as long as there are not too many mosquitoes knocking about. And for those who are here early in the day, there are the usual selection of refreshments like mutton and chicken karahi and jalfrezi and dal and keema. But we are going to carry on and stay on the road and head off to Islamabad. Especially as I suspect that driving in the dark here is going to be a bit of an adventure. So rather than heading straight onto the motorway, we have stopped off somewhere to have something to eat. Now, this sort of place in the UK, I would never dream of stopping at, but I have a suspicion, because of local knowledge, that this will be quite a good place. So the food has arrived, or has started to arrive. It's not a food video, so I'll just describe briefly what we have rather than going into detail. Yogurt with jeera and salad. We have chicken achari kebab, which means it's been marinated in pickle along with the usual kebab marination. And we have beef masala kebab, which is a spicy beef Sikh type kebab. And, as is often the case, some mint yoghurt to accompany the kebabs. And we have mutton karahi, and this one looks very rich and tomatoey. It's not been reduced as much as some that we've had. And, making its first appearance on this tour, a bit of a rarity, mixed vegetables. And to accompany this, we are having roti, the thin wheat bread tonight. And in terms of the kebabs, the beef is the winner. The beef is really quite spicy and aromatic and juicy. Chicken, the flavours, the pickle and the marinade, not as strong as I'd hoped for. And the meat itself, it's okay. So the karahi and the mixed vegetable curry, both excellent. Reasonably spicy with the rich yogurt-infused tomato base. Everything polished off. Crispy rotis, which were hot and fresh and replaced halfway through with some more. Anyway, I'm suitably stuffed. This was miles better than any roadside cafe that I go to in the UK. We're going to have a quick green tea and then head off to our final destination of Islamabad. We will get there eventually. So there we are, Muttonistas, finally arrived at Islamabad about 10 hours later, but we did stop quite a while for a meal, and that visit to the salt mines was probably another 3 or 4 hours on top of that. I think it's about 4 and a bit if you just go from point to point, maybe only 4, about 370 kilometres. Anyway, the motorway was fast, the driving was awful, the service area we went to was actually pretty plush, and Islamabad is pretty plush, but more about that in another video. This is honestly a bit like being in Europe, and the standard of the hotel is commensurate with that. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. See you on the next video. That was the road to Islamabad, and until then, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.